Hi everybody, welcome to Mother Goose's Makery. It's Hannah here and I'm here to show you how I made my Tonic Studios My Recipes for Happiness memory book die set. It's a fab die set that comes with a paper pad, and it was the first release from March Madness 2026. So let's take a look inside the set. So, as all Tonic die sets, this is absolutely chock full of dies. We have 3 different sizes of page, each with an extension that can make it as long as you want for the spine. And then each of those layers has a mat for it, which is embossed at the side. Then we have some little flaps, and then we have slots dies that cut slots into the paper for the exact size for the flaps. So you can make a waterfall. Then this die is for a banner that matches the embossed banner sentiments below. There are 5 of those, but one of mine has pinged off below a cupboard. So I currently have 4 on my magnetic sheet. So we'll just gloss over that. This long one is for the spine, and it will cut the holes that you can use to ribbon thread your spine. Or in my case, I'm going to use a spiral wire because I've discovered, I had a thought, that the pitch of the holes was 3 per inch, which is the exact ratio for a spiral wire. So a super easy way to bind it. That die down there says My Recipes in a lovely script. And then we have some cutlery, a spatula, a whisk, a chef's hat, a Le Creuset pot. And then we have something that's either a cup or a frying pan. I don't know. And then that one there makes the little latch, and that's the hole for the latch. So if you want to do any closing mechanisms that you can use the spatula or the whisk for. So because memory books take time, I've already started with some of my pages, but I'll explain everything I've done. I've cut the main size pages with the largest die, and I've cut the holes in the spine on all of them. And then I've used the tiny little die that does the hole reinforcers, cut out a load of them, and I've reinforced the holes back and front just to give them more stability. Now, for my cover, I've used the first matte layer, so the largest one, and then I've used the next one down to create an aperture. So that's made the craft card frame, which is the outer for our shaker aspect. Behind that, I've put a slightly larger size, which I just freehanded, of the blue cashmere pearlescent card. Just so it gives a slight frame around it. Put acetate behind the frame, foam pad around the outside of the frame, making sure it went all the way around, and then I filled it with a load of iridescent sequins I have. Then I cut out all of the cooking paraphernalia out of iridescent mirrored card, backed it onto some pink, and then mounted it all around the frame, and then did the sentiment in the middle. And I think it makes it clear what this is. It's a recipe book. It says My Recipes. It has a load of cooking stuff on it. You know where you're at with this book. So now we're just going to glue this shaker front to our front page. Our front page is just going to be exactly the same largest die as all the other pages. And then I'm just going to use my bone folder to make sure it's adhered. And just any little bits that are peeling up, I'm just going to slot a little bit of glue underneath. And there you have it. One perfect little shaker front with reinforced holes. That is one page down. So we are on to page 2. Page 2. You will notice with this video, I filmed it on 2 different days, and I did some prep work in between the first and second day. So when I've edited them together, sometimes pages suddenly become a lot more elaborate, but I'll explain as I go. So For this page, I have done a matte layer in Ballet Pink Craft Perfect card in the embossed matte layer. So it's one size down from the biggest die. I have then cut out of the patterned paper a strip of the pretty plates. And I've cut the outside of that again with the same die. Or you can just stick it to it and then just fussy cut around it. It's up to you. Okay, so now we have time jumped to when I decided that I needed a second pocket. So I've just done exactly the same thing with a slightly wider strip and placed that behind the first one to create 2 pockets instead of just one, because it made the page look more balanced. What I've done is I've just glued around the bottom edge, the top edge and the side, and then with the second one, which is behind it, just the top edge and the bottom edge, so that pages can slip all the way in. So now what I'll do is I'll glue that to the back of my front cover, and that is the first 2 pages done. So now we're on to page 3. This one is a super simple page because it doesn't all have to be incredibly complicated flips and flaps. So I've started off by doing a mat in the embossed layer, one size down from the size of the main page, and stuck it onto our page. Then what I've done is I've cut out 3 of just the bottom half of the largest die. Trimmed the holes off the edge, and I've just stuck them down the sides and at the bottom. I've cut the first 2 at an angle just to add a little bit of interest, and then on the bottom layer I added a cutout from the paper pad just to add a bit of decoration. By doing them the size of the largest page, it means they go from edge to edge rather than being slightly smaller, just because I thought that gave us more space to tuck stuff in. So this page, really simple, can be done in a matter of minutes. You don't even have to use a die cut. You could just measure it and use a trimmer, and that might save some time if you so wished. And then here's just me checking that I haven't glued any of my pockets shut, because sometimes you do. So back to the time jump of day 2. I really liked it when I had that bit of craft card in there, but I decided that I actually wanted to put in a patterned paper semicircle so that it would match the paper at the bottom and really tie the whole page together. So what I've done is I used the next size down die cut to cut out some of the pattern paper. I didn't do a full page because I didn't need a full page because you can't see any of the bottom half, so I'm always very frugal with my pattern paper. So just cut out the half a circle and slipped it behind and glued it in place. And that's that page done. All of these tags that are in the slots here were made out of the Tonic Tags and Stamps die set using the back of the cover page of the accompanying paper pad, which has all the tags and stamps laid out, and then you just cut them out. And then I backed them onto card so that you couldn't see the printing on the back. For our next page, I've done a little zigzag fold out, and I've put it behind a belly band with a latch. So I've used some of the functionality. So for the pull-out section, I took some white card and I took the smallest page die, which is the one which has the little hinge bit attached, and I cut out, I think, about 8 of those. I then used my scoreboard to just score down the side of where I thought the hinges should be, and then I used the little hinge tab to stick each page to the next one, and then I trimmed the hinges off some of them just so no hinges were visible. Then I used the smaller embossed die as the matte layer to cut out some of the arches which say nice things on them from the paper pad so that they could go on, so they could be like titles, and then the actual recipes could go on the next page just to make it look colourful and pretty and nice. And then I decided that I was going to back this onto my pink matte layer. As you will see, I later decide that it needs a bit more pizzazz and put an additional layer behind it of pattern paper. I found that with memory books, the more time I have to think about it, the more elaborate things get. They start off as a really simple idea, and then I tinker, even to the point where I have to remove pieces of paper that I've already stuck down to stick down other ones, because I am a nightmare. Okay, so to make the straps and the latch, oh, that rhymes, I cut out 2 of the straps out of the ballet pink card. Out of one of them, I cut the little square hole for the latch, and then I also cut a latch out of the ballet pink. You just crease the lines on that and stick it to your card so that when the 2 are together, the latch goes through the hole. And obviously stick it so that it runs from left to right if you want the stopper to go in vertically, which we did. And I made a stopper out of the whisk, same as on the cover, metallic card and ballet pink. And just put those together, and then that just slots in. So before I glued it down, in order to make sure that it was in the right place, I put together the straps and the latch, and then laid them across the card, working out exactly where I wanted the latch to hit, because in my mind I wanted the latch to hit in the middle of the plate, which is on the cover of the insert. And then, when I knew where I wanted it to be, I then folded the back edges around the back of the card, because I didn't want to crease it first and then find that it didn't fit, because I've fallen foul of that before. So now I've decided where it's going to go, and I folded the straps behind the back. You can just adhere them so that they are in the correct place. You can use glue, red line tape, whatever is your choice. And then everything can be stuck together. So the insert can be mounted on the back card can be mounted on the main page, and job done with another page, until I later decide to go back, pull off the insert, put on another matte layer, and then restick the insert. But if you don't do that, this page is now done. So you can just see, to open it, you take out the whisk, open the straps, and we have a fun little zigzag fold out that has some notes on, and you can fill with recipes or stick in pictures or whatever it is. Shut it up, and then just pop the whisk back in to close the latch. And as you can see, I then went back, took off the insert, stuck down some pattern paper, and then restuck the insert just because I thought it looked better that way. For this page, I decided to do a little flap a little tuck behind. So, as per normal, pink matte layer, and then I did another smaller layer of the pattern paper to decorate it. And then I cut 2 semicircles. So they are the top half of the page, and I did them in the size of the page and in the next size down. And then I've just scored about 1/2 inch from the bottom of however large I decided for them to be, and stuck them to the page beneath it. I then used the same die as the smaller one to cut out one of the sentiments from the pattern pad. And then I cut out another layer of card the same size, cut a hole in it with one of my hole punches, and popped a magnet in behind it so that the magnet's recessed, because I don't necessarily like the lump you always get when you put in a magnet. So what I've done is the magnet is sandwiched between the pattern paper and the front flap. And then I've put the back magnet onto the pink matte layer. So that will be hidden behind the pattern paper, but I didn't want it stuck behind all the layers because obviously I wanted to maximise magnetiness. At this point, I should also point out that what I'm doing with the internal pages is I'm attaching them at the top, the inner side and the bottom, so that should the mood so take us, we're going to have pockets in the side of every internal page to slip in recipes or notes, because I often find that I would tear recipes out of magazines and have nowhere to pop them. So now you can just slip them in between the pages. Obviously you don't have to, but at least if it's not completely sealed, then you have an option too. And because the card I have used is like 350 GSM, it's super robust. So I don't actually need to have the pages stuck together for rigidity. If I was using a lighter weight cardstock, I would probably want the security of having the two pages actually adhered together to up the GSM. But this craft card is super roughy tufty robust, so I'm not worried about my pages bending or tearing. So I'm more than happy to just pop a pocket in them. So that's what I'm doing here right now. This next page leads a little to no explanation. Back page, matte, layer, and then I've just cut 2 horizontal pockets out of the bottom half of the big die and stuck down at either side and at the bottom, so that we have created some horizontal pockets. That's it. I kind of feel like with a memory book that as much as I love a complex, flippy, flappy, interactive page, you also just need some normal pages. So this page is flaps on flaps. What I've done is I cut out a number of the second page size down, and I made sure we had extended flaps on either side so that I could fold them behind a middle section to create a gatefold situation. So what I've done is I've cut the matte layer out of white and then the next page layer down in the craft, and then I've scored down the sides and adhered those to either side. I've then done a matte layer on those with the pattern paper, and I've then cut the third and smallest page layer out of a piece of card, that I have folded in half, scored down the middle, so it makes a little card. And then what I've done is I've opened up, and then in the spine, I've scored another line so that both pages can open up. So both the front and the back page can open up, because that page is adhered to the pattern paper just by the little spine I've created by scoring. So you can see that all of these pages just open out, so you can fill them with recipes that you can hand down to your family. So again, you'll see this now just with this one, because I left the last page to be done. So it was a piece of card that was folded in half before I die cut it, which created the first fold. And then I have scored next to the stitching line to create another fold. So you can see now it has a gusset. And then what we're going to do is just reinforce those folds to make sure it's nice and crisp and opens easily. And then we're just going to glue that page down by the gusset. That sounds incredibly rude. But we're going to glue it by the gusset to the page. And then, so we have pages that fold out, and then we have pages that fold out from the pages that fold out. It's a wonderful foldception moment, but I really like this page. It makes me smile whenever I see it. I don't know why. Probably because I'm very, very easily pleased. Might be that. Then for this front page of this flapperganza, I've cut out a different contrasting matte layer from the pattern paper, and then I have oval cut with just a die from my stash, one of the sentiments from the pattern paper, and then a slightly larger oval from the ballet pink, so it just ties all the colours in together, and then that page can be stuck in as well. Okay, so the next page is utilising the smaller waterfall flaps that are in the die set. So for the base of the page, another matte layer in ballet pink. I've cut another strap in the ballet pink, but I cut that twice. And then in between the two layers, I sandwiched a magnet at the tip. I've scored it at the point where I want the crease to hit so that that can fold behind. And then on the back of the page, I have adhered another magnet so that the two touch, the flap shuts, and you have a secure strap for your waterfall. So what I did was I have cut 4 of the larger flaps out of craft card, and then I've cut the smallest matte layer out of white card. I have then used the die that cuts the slots, and this die cuts 2 slots, so you have to do your flaps in 2s, which does slightly annoy me because what if I only want 1? But that's by the by. So you just place that wherever you want the slots to be, run it through your die cutting machine. You'll end up with 2 slots perfectly sized for the flaps. And then I moved it up, did another 2 slots, and then popped in my 4 cards and just stuck the flaps down with some red line tape. Also make sure you crease your fold line for your flaps because otherwise they are not going to flap properly. And that is the simplest way to do a waterfall. You could have do one with a mechanism. I chose not to. I did also consider then doing a smaller flapped waterfall on top of that waterfall. Again, decided to stop over complicating things because I do have somewhat of a tendency to do that. So then we're just going to mount this waterfall onto the page, try and get it centered, make sure that the strap is sitting in the right place. And then we're going to do a cheeky little time jump to when I was decorating the book, and I fussy cut a load of the cupcakes and just adorn them across the strap and then around the top and the bottom of the page, just to try and tie everything together because I didn't want it to be too busy, but I didn't want it to be too plain. So I thought that was the best middle ground. And then I also stuck one of the tags that I had cut out on the front flap. I think because these flaps are a bit small for recipes, I'm going to stick some pictures of my daughter baking because she has a little chef's hat and apron and looks adorable. So that's going to be my go-to plan. I'm going to apologise in advance for the rippedness underneath this page. At the end of the video, you will see a bonus page that didn't make the cut. I ripped it off because I changed my mind. But I was reusing the base because it was absolutely fine and I didn't need to recut it by the time I was sticking more paper to it. So, this page is a little gatefold with a pocket made with a matte layer in white, the size down from the largest page, and then I started cutting a second copy of this out of the pattern paper, but I stopped halfway down, and because I stopped halfway down, that allowed me to cut out slightly at the edge to create a spine which I could then fold behind the white matte layer to create a gatefold. Does that make sense? So we had one arch with a flap on either side, and then I just cut it straight down the middle with my paper trimmer. So I had 2 gatefolds. And then what I've done is I've made some tags out of the smallest page mat and I cut them in blue and pink so that they matched everything else, and it all kind of ties together. And I've also done a craft card layer in the middle size, just to kind of fill the space so it doesn't look too empty. The pocket at the bottom is made from me fussy cutting a strip out of one of the decorative papers, and as per the other pages, just gluing it on the left, the right and the bottom to create a pocket. This page felt more complicated than it was, I think, because it had a previous iteration and I completely changed it. If I made this page again, I would probably stick additional card behind the doors just to make them more rigid, because the paper pad is a very thick paper / lightweight card. I think it's about 200 GSM, and I would normally use a sturdier cardstock to do doors. But it works, and it's fine. In order to keep the doors shut, and because I bloody love a magnet, I have just used the smallest flap, which I haven't actually utilised anywhere in this book other than for this shutting mechanism. I cut it out 3 times. One of them I have cut short, so we just have the curved edge and about half the length. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick a magnet to the back of the short flap and then stick that to my left-hand page. And then on my right-hand page, I'm going to sandwich the other magnet between the 2 longer flaps on the left-hand side so that it will close and attach to the magnet on the left. It's hard to put it in words, but you can also see what I'm doing, so that's fine. This page here actually became the double door page that I just showed you. It didn't make the cut, it got ripped out. However, it got filmed, so I might as well show it to you. Super simple. It was a pink matten layer. I cut the same layer in white, cut it in half, stuck it on. This little booklet was made in a similar style to the ones on the fold-out page, except these are stapled together as a book. This was done by taking a piece of white paper, and then I cut out the right-hand side with the small page with the spine attachment. And then I flipped over the paper and lined up the bottom and the spine attachment and cut it out again. So you end up with 2 sides with a bit in the middle. And then I scored straight down the middle of the spine. I made 3 of these. And I've put them all together, stapled them in the middle to make a little booklet, and I've attached one of the arch-shaped pages to the front just to decorate. This was originally tucked into the pocket in the back page, but is now what you saw earlier in the video on the inside cover. So now all the pages are finished, it's time to bind the book. And there are various ways you can do that. You can run ribbons in and out of the holes, or you could attach a traditional spine to it. However, I am going to use a spiral wire because the picture's 3:1, which is, I think, a massive coincidence, but very convenient. So all I've got to do is thread this wire through the holes and then twist it and keep going through the holes until we get to the end. Then what I do is I thread the wire back through the last hole and then just crimp the edge of it so that it can't unwind. So due to my inability to leave anything well enough alone, I decided that I wanted to provide a closure for the book. What I did was I peeled off the rolling pin. I then cut out 3 of the straps, cut the end off one, and adhered a magnet to the craft card frame and popped that little semicircular end over top to hide it. Then between the 2 other straps, I sandwiched the matching magnet, attached the rolling pin to the front, wrapped it around the book, and then glued the straps to the back. Last but not least, I'm just attaching another one of the largest pages with the spine cut off to the back to hide the strap and just finish everything off, and then sticking some of the patterned paper to that just to make it look jazzy. And that is the end of my recipe book. I hope that you have enjoyed this tutorial. I hope that it has been helpful in things you could do, flaps and pockets and little ideas and bindings. Please like, please subscribe. If you wish to purchase this die set, there is a link in my bio and the description. Full disclosure, I get a teeny tiny commission for that, but that helps me continue making these tutorials for you guys because I don't work for Tonic. But yes, please like and subscribe or leave a comment because it all helps the algorithmic gods do their thing. And press the bell notification if you want to know when my other videos are going up. And yes, give it a go. If you have any questions, please ask, and hopefully I'll see you on my next video. Keep crafty.